Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, Nandavad Pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining in the Japa call. Is it audible, na? Clear, na? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yes, let us begin with our Mangalacharana prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nite Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter Adilila, chapter 5, entitled as Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. Lord Chaitanya is none other than Supreme Personality of Godhead in 5 features. And all those 5 features in relationship with Bhakti. Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. In detail, explaining all these 5 features in this chapter, right? Bhakti, Bhakta, and different expansions, right? Let us begin with 111 verse. We read up to 110 verse. Okay. Yes. Let me confirm again. Continue from okay, 111. Yeah. Mata is please begin from your side. Yeah, Samyukta Mata, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. According to direct understanding, the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has all spiritual opulences. No one can be equal to or greater than him. Purport. This statement by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11. Vadanti tattva vidhas tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. The absolute truth is ultimately understood as Bhagavan, partially understood as Paramatma, and vaguely understood as the impersonal Brahman. Bhagavan or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is opulent in all excellence. No one can be equal to or greater than him. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.7, where the Lord says, Mattah Parantaram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. There are many other verses which prove that the absolute truth in the ultimate sense is understood to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. 7.7 Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasi Dhananjaya. No one is equal to Krishna or greater than Krishna. That's the thing. Apaurushaya, Asamaurdhva, different words there in Sanskrit. Yeah. Sandhya Mataji, would you like to read? Are you able to read? Yeah.
Prabhuji, I'll be in Prabhuji, actually.
Okay.
Hometown.
Sure.
In between
Okay,
our...
Mataji.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Right.
I'll be...
Yeah. I have seen Sravya Mataji. Would you like to read?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I was not seeing the screen. Can you just tell me where it ended?
Oh, I'm not sharing. It's too much.
I'm sharing, Prabhuji. You are sharing, Prabhuji, but I was not seeing the screen. From where I should start, Prabhuji?
112 words.
With the translation or the purport? That's what I was asking.
Both. Yeah, translation, purport, both.
Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. So everything about the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual, including his body, opulence and paraphernalia, Mayavada philosophy, however, covering his spiritual opulence, advocates the theory of impersonalism. Purport. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna has a spiritual body which is full of knowledge, eternity, and bliss. In the material world, everyone's body is just the opposite, temporary, full of ignorance and full of misery. Therefore, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is sometimes described as Nirakara, there is to indicate that he does not have a material body like us. Mayavadi philosophers do not know how is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is formless. The Supreme Lord does not have a form like ours but has a spiritual form. Not knowing this, Mayavadi philosophers simply advocate the one-sided view that the Supreme Godhead or Brahman is formless, Nirakara. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura offers many quotes from the Vedic literature. If one accepts the real or direct meaning of these Vedic statements, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a spiritual body, Satchitananda Vigraha. In the
Yeah, Mataji, let us give it to other devotees. Thank you, Mataji.
okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes. Lavanya, are you there? Would you like to read? Continue on this?
Yes, I can continue. Just a second. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 5.1.1, it is said, Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. This indicates that the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is spiritual, for even though he expands in many ways, he remains the same. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord says, Aham Sarvasya Prabho Matta Sarvam Pravartate. And the origin of all, everything emanates from me. Mayavadi philosophers materialistically think that if the Supreme Truth expands himself in everything, he must lose his original form. Thus, they think that there cannot be any form other than the expansive, gigantic form of body of the Lord. But the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad confirms Purnamada Purnam Udachyate. Although he expands in many ways, he keeps his original personality. His original spiritual body remains as it is. Similarly, elsewhere it is stated, Vichitra Shakti Purusha Purnaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purana. Vichitra Shakti Purusha Purana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original person, Purusha, has multifarious energies. And the Shveteshvatara Upanishad declares, Savruksha Kalakriti Bihi. Paro Nyayo Yasmat Prapancha Parivartate Yam Dharmavaham Papanudam Bhagesham. He is the origin of material creation, and it is due to him only that everything changes. He is the protector of religion and annihilator of all sinful activities. He is the master of all opulences. Shveteshvatara Upanishad 6.6. Vedaham etam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasa parashrat. Now I understood the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the greatest of great. He is effulgent like the sun and is beyond this material world. Shveteshvatara Upanishad 3.8. Patim Patnam Paramam Parastat. He is the master of all masters and the superior of all superior. Shveteshvatara Upanishad 6.7. Mahan Prabhur Vai Purusha. He is the Supreme Master and Supreme Person. Shveteshvatara Upanishad 3.12. Paraksya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate. We can understand his opulences in different ways. Shveteshvatara Upanishad 6.8. Similarly, in the Rig Veda, it is stated, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Shada Pashyanti Suraya. Vishnu is the Supreme, and those who are actually learned think only of his lotus feet.
In the Prashna Upanishad 6.3, it is said, Sa Iksham Chakre. He glanced over the material creation. In the Aitareya Upanishad 1.1 to 1.2, it is said, Sa Aishakta, he glanced over the material creation, and Sa Imal Lokan Ashrata, he created this entire material world.
Yeah. You can complete it. Yes, complete it.
Thus, many verses can be quoted from the Upanishads and Vedas, which prove that the Supreme Godhead is not impersonal. In the Katha Upanishads 2.2.13, it is also said, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunamna Vidadati Kaman. He is the supreme eternally conscious person who maintains all other living entities. From all these Vedic references, one can understand that the absolute truth is a person and that no one can equal or excel him. Although there are many foolish Mayavada philosophers who think that they are even greater than Krishna, Krishna is Asamordhva. No one is equal or above him. As stated in the
Svetashwara Upanishad, Panipado Javano Grahita. This verse describes the absolute truth as having no legs or hands. Although this is an impersonal description, it does not mean that the absolute personality of Godhead has no form. He has a spiritual form that is distinct from the forms of matter. In this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clarifies this distinction.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ansini Lavanya. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next, Chandravel Prabhu, please continue from
Hare
there.
Krishna. Translation and purpose by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of spiritual potencies. Therefore, his body, name, fame, and entourage are all spiritual. The Mayavadi philosopher, due to ignorance, says that these are all merely transformations of the material mode of goodness. Purport. In the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has classified his energies into two distinct divisions, namely Prakruta and Apakruta, or Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti. In the Vishnu Purana, the same distinction is made. The Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand these two Prakritis or natures, material and spiritual, but one who is actually intelligent can understand them. Considering the many varieties and activities in material nature, why should the Mayavadi philosophers deny the spiritual varieties of the spiritual world? The Bhagavatam 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 32 sloka says, Yenye Ravindaksha Vimuktam Maninas Taye Asta Bhavad Avisuddha Buddha. The intelligence of those who think themselves liberated, but have no information of the spiritual world is not yet clear. In this verse, the term Avisuddha Buddha refers to unclean intelligence. Due to unclean intelligence or poor fount of knowledge, the Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand the distinction between material and spiritual varieties. Therefore, they cannot even think of spiritual varieties because they take it for granted that all variety is material. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore explains in this verse that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Absolute Truth, has a spiritual body that is distinct from material bodies, and thus his name, abode, encourage, and qualities are all spiritual. The material mode of goodness has nothing to do with spiritual varieties. Mayavadi philosophers, however, cannot clearly understand spiritual varieties. Therefore, they imagine a negation of the material world to be the spiritual world. The material qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance cannot act in the spiritual world, which is therefore called Nirguna, as clearly indicated in the Bhagavad Gita. Traigunya Visaya, Veda Nistrai Gunyo Bhavarjuna. The material world is a manifestation of the three modes of material nature, but one has to become free from the these modes to come to the spiritual world, where their influence is completely absent. Now, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will dissociate Lord Shiva from Mayavadi philosophy in the following verse. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Akincham Prabhu, would you like to read? 114.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shankaracharya, who is an incarnation of the Lord Shiva, is faultless because he is the servant carrying out the orders of the Lord. But those who follow his Mayavadi philosophy are doomed. They will lose all their advancement in the spiritual knowledge. Purport. Mayavadi philosophers are very proud of exhibiting their Vedanta knowledge through grammatical jugglery. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna certifies that they are Mayapartha Jnana, bereft of real knowledge due to Maya. Maya has two potencies, with which to execute her two functions. The Prakesha Patmik Shakti, the power to throw the living entity into the ocean of material existence, and Avarnatmika
Atmika.
Shakti, the power to cover the knowledge of the living entity. The functions of the Avarnatmika Shakti is explained in the Bhagavad Gita by the word Mayapartha Jnana. Why the can I continue, Prabhu?
Continue.
Yeah, why the Daivi Maya or illusory energy of Krishna takes away the knowledge of the Mayavadi philosophers is also explained in Bhagavad Gita by the use of the words Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, which refers to the person who does not agree to the existence of the Lord. The Mayavadis who are not in agreement with the existence of the Lord can be classified into two groups, exemplified by the impersonalist Shankarites of Varnasi and Buddhists of Saranatha. Both groups are Mayavadis, and Krishna takes away their knowledge due to their atheistic philosophy. Neither group agrees to accept the existence of the personal God. The Buddhist philosophers clearly deny both the soul and the God, and although the Shankarites do not openly deny God, they say that the absolute is Nirakara, or formless. Thus, both the Buddhists and the Shankarites are Avisuddha Buddhaya, are imperfect and unclean in their knowledge and intelligence.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, it's a big purport. Let us give it to Aryan Prabhu. Aryan Prabhu, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The most prominent Mayavadi scholar, Sudhananda Yogendra, has written a book called Vedanta Sara, in which he expounds the philosophy of Sankaracharya, and all the followers of Sankara's philosophy attribute great importance to his statements. In this Vedanta Sara, Sadhana Yogendra defines Brahman as Satchidanand combined with knowledge and without duality. And he defines ignorance, Jada, as knowledge distinct from that of Sat and Asat. It is almost inconceivable, but it is the product of three material qualities. Thus, he considers anything other than pure knowledge to be material. The center of ignorance is considered to be sometimes all-pervading and sometimes individual. Thus, according to his opinion, both the all-pervading Vishnu and the individual living entity are products of ignorance. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
You can read this also. Okay, let me read. In simple language, it is the opinion of Sadananda Yogendra that since everything is Nirakara, formless, the conception of Vishnu and the conception of the individual soul are both products of ignorance. He also explains that the Vishuddha Sattva conception of the Vaishnavas is nothing but Pradhana, or the chief principle of creation. He maintains that when all pervading knowledge is contaminated by the Vishuddha Sattva, which consists of transformation of the quality of goodness, there arises the conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the omnipotent, omniscient, supreme ruler, the super soul, the cause of all causes, the supreme Ishvara, etc. According to Sadananda Yogindra, because Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, is a reservoir of all ignorance, he may be called Sarvagya or omniscient. But one who denies the existence of the omnipotent Supreme Personality of God is more than Ishvara or the Lord. His conclusion, therefore, is that the Supreme Personality of God, Ishvara, is a transformation of material ignorance and that the living entity Jiva is covered by ignorance. Thus, he describes both collective and individual existence in darkness. According to Mayavadi philosophers, the Vaishnava conception of the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and of the Jiva or individual soul as his eternal servant is a manifestation of ignorance. If we accept the judgment of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, however, the Mayavadis are to be considered Mayaya Pahrita Jnana, or bereft of all knowledge, because they do not recognize the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or they claim that his existence is a product of the material conception Maya. These are characteristics of asuras or demons. Asuras or demons. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his discourses with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, said, Jivere nistara lagi sutra kaila vyasa mayavadi bhashya sunile haya sarva nasha. Jivere nistara lagi sutra kaila vyasa mayavadi bhashya sunile haya sarva nasha. Directly sarva nasha. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. CC Madhya Leela, 6th chapter 169 verse. Continue, Mataji. Raju Prabhu is in hearing mode and Sandhya Mata is in hearing mode. Again, yeah. Samyukta Mata, please read from here.
Yes, Prabhuji. Vyasadeva composed the Vedanta Sutra to deliver the conditioned souls from this material world. But Shankaracharya, by presenting the Vedanta Sutra in his own way, has clearly done a great disservice to human society. For one who follows his Mayavadi philosophy is doomed. In the Vedanta Sutra, devotional service is clearly indicated, but the Mayavadi philosophers refuse to accept the spiritual body of the Supreme Absolute Person and refuse to accept that the living entity has an individual existence separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Thus, they have created atheistic havoc all over the world. For such a conclusion is against the very nature of the transcendental process of pure devotional service. The Mayavadi philosophers' unrealizable ambition to become one with Supreme through denying the existence of the personality of Godhead results in a most calamitous misrepresentation of spiritual knowledge. And one who follows this philosophy is doomed to remain perpetually in this material world. Therefore, the Mayavadis are called Avishuddha Buddhayaha, is or unclean in knowledge. Because they are unclean in knowledge, all their austerities and penances end in frustration. Thus, although they may be honored at first as very learned scholars, ultimately they descend to physical activities of politics, social work, etc. Instead of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, they again become one with these material activities. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Aruhya krichena param padam tataha patanti adho nadrata Yushmad angrayaha. In actuality, the Mayavadi philosophers very strictly follow the austerities and penances of spiritual life, and in this way are elevated to the impersonal Brahman platform. But due to their negligence of the lotus feet of the Lord, they again fell down to material existence.
Thank you.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhuji,
Yes,
what
tell
is
me.
penances, Prabhuji? Penances.
What, Mataji?
Penances. Austerities and penances of spiritual life.
Following rules and regulations, Mataji. Spiritual, 4 regulative principles following strictly. So it's called, austerities and penances of spiritual life. Strictly. See, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Strict following. Right. So that's what it is, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. So next, Shravya Mataji, would you like to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. One who considers the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu to be made of material nature is the greatest offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. There is no greater blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami explains that the variegated personal feature of the Absolute Truth is the Vishnu Tattva and that the material energy, which creates this cosmic manifestation, is the energy of Lord Vishnu. The creative force is merely the energy of the Lord, but the foolish conclude that because the Lord has distributed himself in an impersonal form, he has no separate existence. The impersonal Brahman, however, cannot possess energies, nor do the Vedic literatures state that Maya, the illusionary energy, is covered by another Maya. There are hundreds and thousands of references, however, to Vishnu Maya, Parasya Shakti, or the energy of Lord Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Krishna refers to Mama Maya, my energy. Maya is controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not that he is covered by Maya. Therefore, Lord Vishnu cannot be a product of material energy. In the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, it is said, Janma, Janmadya Asya Yataha, indicating that the material energy is also an emanation of the Supreme Brahman. How then could he be covered by the material energy? If that were possible, material energy would be greater than the Supreme Brahman. Even these simple arguments, however, cannot be understood by the Mayavadi philosophers, and therefore the term Maya Pahatha Gnana, which is applied to them in the Bhagavad Gita, is extremely appropriate. Anyone who thinks that Lord Vishnu is a product of the material energy, as explained by Sadananda Yogindra, should immediately be understood to be insane, for his knowledge has been stolen by the illusion energy.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Chandramal Prabhu, please read.
Hare Krishna. Translation purport by Silpa Parkijay. Lord Vishnu cannot be placed within the category of the demigods. Those who are actually bewildered by the Mayavada philosophy and are still in the darkness of ignorance consider Lord Vishnu to be a demigod. In defense of the Rigvedic mantra, Om Tat Vishnu Parama Padam. Vishnu is always in a superior position. This mantra is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Mata Parataram Nanyat. There is no truth superior to Lord Krishna or Vishnu. Thus, only those whose knowledge has been bewildered consider Lord Vishnu to be a demigod, and therefore suggest that one may worship either Lord Vishnu, the goddess Kali, Durga, or whomever one likes and achieve the same result. This is an ignorant conclusion that is not accepted in the Bhagavad Gita 9 chapter 25th sloka, which distinctly says Yanti Deva Radha Devam Yanti Madhyajna Api Mam. The worshippers of the demigods will be promoted to the respective planets of the demigods, but devotees of the Supreme Lord will go back home, back to Godhead. Lord Krishna explains very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita 7 chapter 14 sloka that his material energy is very difficult to overcome. Daivi he esa guna mayimana maya durataya. Maya's influence is so strong that even learned scholars and spiritualists are also covered by Maya and think themselves to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, however, to free oneself from the influence of Maya, one must surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Krishna also states in the Bhagavad Gita 7 chapter 14 sloka, Mamaeva prapadyante mayam itam taranti de. It is to be concluded, therefore, the Lord Vishnu does not belong to this material creation but to the spiritual world. To misconceive the Lord Vishnu to have a material body or to equate him with the demigods is the most offensive blasphemy against Lord Vishnu, and offenders against the lotus feet of the Lord Vishnu cannot advance in spiritual knowledge. They are called Maya Farta Jnana, or those whose knowledge has been stolen by the influence of illusion.
Thank you.
One who thinks that there is a difference. One who thinks that there is a difference between Lord Vishnu's body and his soul dwells in the darkest region of the ignorance. There is no difference between Lord Vishnu's body and Vishnu's soul, for they are Advaita Jnana, one whose knowledge, one knowledge. In this world, there is a difference between the material body and the spiritual soul. But in the spiritual world, everything is spiritual, and there are no such differences. The greatest offense of the Mayavadi philosophy is to consider Lord Vishnu and the living entities to be one and the same. In this connection, the Padma Purana states Chiye Vishnu Siladir Gurusu Nara Matir Vishnave Jati Buddhi Yasyava Naraki Sa. One who considers the Archa Murti, the worshipable deity of Lord Vishnu, to be stone, the spiritual master to be an ordinary human being, and a Vaishnava to belong to a particular caste or creed is possessed of a hellish intelligence. One who follows such conclusion is doomed.
Doomed. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes. So this is the various Upanishads and Puranas. So that is the beauty of Srila Prabhupada purports. In this connection, in this particular verse connection, he is quoting from different references, quoting from different sources. So to understand clearly, ultimately the goal of Srila Prabhupada is to give proper knowledge. That is the quality of Vaishnava Acharya, the real proper Vaishnava Acharya, to help fallen souls, to help his disciples, to understand clearly, to establish personal form of Krishna with the references from different sources. Right? Is a left and right he is playing with the Mayavadi philosophy in his purports. Srila Prabhupada, how he is explaining, see, it's wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhujis and Matajis. We'll continue from 116 verse tomorrow. Let us go to our sloka practice. It's up to you, whoever likes to stay or continue. Yeah. Today, who is going to do, and we'll all repeat. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhujis and Matajis. Anybody likes to help here to recite like one line once, 2 lines second time, and 4 lines third time? Let us do that practice.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
You want to do?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All 14 verses. Okay.
I'll try my best, Prabhuji. Last
Yeah,
verses, I'm not good at pronunciation, but I'll try maximum for how much ever I can.
You can get, Mataji. Translation, who is going to do? I'm asking somebody. Kinchan Prabhu, would you like to do? Or translations, can you do? We all repeat. Yeah, I think you are speaking on mute. Kinchan Prabhu. Okay, otherwise, Lavanya, are you there? Subbarao Prabhu. Okay.
I can try, Prabhu. No issue.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Mata. Shravya Mata, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Lavanya, I'm asking about the translation. You repeat translation. We all.
So you'll be
follow
reading
you, okay?
Shloka?
Shravya Mata is doing. Okay.
Yeah. Prabhuji, 1 line at once and then 2 lines and then 4, right?
Right.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay. Lokam Japindi, first 7.5 or 7.5 Japi.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll follow. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita 7.5 sloka. Apareyam itastvanyam.
Apareyam itastvanyam.
प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे पराम्
प्रकृतिं
प्रकृतिं
विद्धि
विद्धि मे पराम्
जीवभूतां महाबाहो
जीवभूतं
महाबाहो
ययेदं धार्यते जगत्
ययेदं धार्यते जगत्
अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यं प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे पराम्
अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यां प्रकृतिं
प्रकृतिं
विद्धि मे
विद्धि मे पराम्
जीवभूतां महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत्
जीवभूतं महाबाहो
वेदं धार्यते
जगत्
अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यं प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे पराम् जीवभूतान् महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत्
अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यां प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे पराम्
जीवभूतं
जीवभूतं महाबाहो
वेदं
वेदं
धार्यते
धार्यते
जगत्.
जगत्
Tanya translation you say.
Translation. Besides these, there is a superior end of mind which comprises the living.
అట్లా కాదు, ఫస్ట్ ఇంటర్నెట్ దగ్గర చూసుకో, అప్పుడప్పుడు బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది. ఓకే, మీరు ఒక్కొక్క లైన్ చెప్తే కామా దగ్గర వరకు ఆగి అట్లా, ఓకేనా?
Okay. Besides these,
this
O mighty armed Arjuna,
oh my
Arjuna,
there is another
there is
there
another
is another
superior energy of mind
superior
energy
energy
of
of
mind
comprises the living entities
which
which
comprises
comprise
the living
living
entities
exploiting the resources of this material
who are exploiting the resources of this material
inferior nature.
inferior nature.
Thank you. Yes. Let us go to the one. Yeah, Mother.
Bhagavad Gita 7.14 sloka. Daivi hesha gunamayi
दैवी केशा गुणमयी
mama maya durantaya
मम
Mama
माया
Maya
दुरत्यया
mame vaye prapadyante
Mam
एव ये
prapadyante
mayam yetam taranti te.
मायामेतां तन्ते
Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya durantaya
दैवी
Daivi
केशा
Esha
गुणमयी
Mama Maya
दुरत्यया
mame vaye prapadyante mayametam taranti te.
Mam
ये प्रपद्यते मायामेतां तन्ते
Daivi hesha gunamayi. Okay. What Prabhuji?
Duratya కాదు, Duratya.
Duratyaya. Yes, Prabhuji. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaye prapadyante mayametam taranti te.
Daivi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya Mam Ye Prapadyante
Mayametam tarantite.
Translation. This divine energy of mind
This
divine energy of mind
consisting of the three modes of material nature
consisting of
three modes of material nature
is difficult to overcome.
is difficult to overcome.
But those who have surrendered unto me
But those who have surrendered unto me
can easily cross beyond it.
can easily cross beyond it.
Thank you.
Bhagavad Gita 7.19 sloka. Bahunam janmanamante
Bahunam janmanamante
gnanavan mam prapadyate
jnanavanamante
vasudeva sarvamiti
vasudeva sarvamiti
samahatma sudurlabha
Samahatma
bahunam janmanamante gnanavan mam prapadyate
Bahunam janmanamante
vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha
वासुदेवा सर्वमिति
महात्मा दुर्लभः
बहुनां जन्मनामन्ते ज्ञानावान् मां प्रपद्यते वासुदेवा सर्वमिति समहात्मा सुदुर्लभा
बहुनामां जन्मनामन्ते
मां प्रपद्यते वासुदेवा सर्वमिति महात्मा सुदुर्लभः
महात्मा सुदुर्लभः.
Translation. After many births and deaths,
After many births and deaths,
he who is actually knowledge
he who is actually knowledge
surrenders unto me,
surrenders unto me,
knowing me to be the cause of all causes
knowing me the cause of all causes
and all that is.
and all that is.
Such a great soul is very rare.
Such a great soul is very rare.
Bhagavad Gita 8 chapter 8 Bhagavad Gita 8.5 sloka Antakale cha mameva
Antakale cha mameva
Smaran muktva kalevaram
Smaran muktva kalevaram
Yap prayati samadbhavam
Yat prayati samadbhavam
Yati nastyatra samshaya
Yati nashishra samshaya
Antakale cha mameva Smaran muktva kalevaram
Antakale cha mameva Smaran muktva kalevaram
Yap prayati samadbhavam Yati nasti yatra samshaya
Yat prayati samadbhavam Yati nashishra samshaya
Antakale cha mameva Smaran muktva kalevaram Yap prayati samadbhavam Yati nasti yatra samshaya
Antakale cha mameva Smaran muktva kalevaram Yat prayati samadbhavam Yati nashishra samshaya.
Translation. And whoever at the end of his life
And whoever at the end of his life
quits his body,
Quits his body
remembering me alone,
Remembering
remembering me alone
at once attains my nature.
at once attains my nature.
Of this there is no doubt.
Of this there is no doubt. Bhagavad Gita 8.16 sloka Abrahma bhuvana loka Punar avartino Arjuna
पुनर्भवतिनो अर्जुन
Mamupetya tu kaunteya
माम् उपद्य कौन्तेय
Punarjanmana vidiyate
Punarjanmana vidyate.
Na vidyate. Okay, Prakash. Abrahma bhuvana loka
Loka.
Punar avartino Arjuna
Arjuna.
Mamupetya tu kaunteya Punarjanmana vidyate Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna
Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna.
Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate
Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate.
Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate
Translation. From the highest planet in the material world
From the highest planet in the material world
down to the lowest,
down to the lowest,
all are places of misery,
all places of misery,
wherein repeated birth and death takes place.
wherein repeated birth
takes place.
But one who attends to my abode,
but
one
one
who
who
attends
attends
to
to
my
my
abode,
O son of Kunti,
O
son of Kunti,
never takes birth again.
never
never
takes birth
takes
again.
again. Ninth chapter. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah, 9.2. Yes, go ahead.
Chapter 9, Bhagavad Gita, 9.2 Shloka. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam.
Pavitram idam uttamam.
Pavitram idam
Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam.
Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam.
Susukam kartum avyayam.
Susukam kartum avyayam.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram idam uttamam.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam.
Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam susukam kartum avyayam. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram idam uttamam. Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam susukam kartum avyayam.
Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam. Pavitram idam uttamam. Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam. Susukam kartum avyayam.
Translation. This knowledge is the king of education,
This knowledge is the king of education,
the most secret of all secrets.
the most secret of all secrets,
It is the purest knowledge,
is the purest knowledge,
and because it gives direct perception of the self,
because
complete journey.
because it gives direct perception of self,
by realization kuda
because
because it gives direct perception of the self by realization,
and because
it
it
gives
gives
direct
direct
perception of the self
by realization.
it is the perfection of religion.
It is the
It is the perfection of religion.
It is everlasting,
It is everlasting,
and it is joyfully performed.
it is joyfully performed.
Bhagavad Gita 9.4 Shloka. Maya tatam idam sarvam.
Mataji.
Maya tatam.
Maya tatam. Okay. Maya tatam idam sarvam.
Maya
tatam idam sarvam.
Jagat avyakta murtina.
Jagat
Avyaktamurtina.
Matsani sarva bhutani.
Matsani sarvabhutani.
Nachaham te svavastita.
Nachaham
Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina.
Maya
सर्वं जगदव्यक्तमूर्तिना
Matsani sarva bhutani nachaham te svavastita.
सर्वभूतानि चाहं तेषवस्थिता
Maya tatam idam sarvam. Sorry. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. Matsani sarva bhutani nachaham te svavastita.
Maya
tatamidam sarvam jagat-murtina
Mastani
sarvabhutani nachaham te-svavastitah.
ఆ చిన్న వాళ్ళనే చాలా మీనింగ్ ఉంటుంది మాకు. మాయా అంటే ఇల్యూజన్, అది మయా అంటే కృష్ణ. చూడండి, బై మీ మాయా.
Translation. By me in my unmanifested form,
By me in my
unmanifested form,
this entire universe is pervaded.
This entire universe is pervaded.
All beings are in me,
All beings are in me,
but I am not in them.
but I am not in them.
Bhagavad Gita 9.14 Shloka. Satatam kirtayanto mam.
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां
Yatantascha dhridavrata.
यतन्तश्च दृढावृता
नमस्त्यन्ताश्च मां भक्त्या
नमस्त्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या
नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्ताश्च दृढव्रता
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रतः
नमस्यन्ताश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
नमस्त्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रता नमस्यन्ताश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च
व्रतः
नमस्त्यन्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्ता उपासते
Translation. Always chanting my glories,
always chanting my glories,
endeavoring with great determination,
endeavoring
and
with
with
determination,
bowing down before me,
bowing down before me,
his great souls
These great
great
souls
souls
perpetually worship me,
perpetually worship
worship
me
me
devotion.
with
devotion.
Prabhuji, can someone take from here? My pronunciation is very bad from here. I need to practice more.
Sure, mother. Try and mother. It's okay. This is a practice. Nobody is perfect here. Okay, you can try now. Similar way.
Okay, Prabhuji.
I'll help you.
Okay. Bhagavad Gita 9.25 sloka. Yanti deva vrata devan.
Yanti
Pitrinyanti pitirvrata.
Pitrinyanti Pitrivrata
Bhutani yanti bhutejya.
Bhutani yanti
Bhutejya
Yanti madhya jinopi mam.
yanti
Yanti deva vrata devan pitrinyanti pitirvrata.
Yanti Deva Pitrinyanti Pitrivrata
Bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhya jinopi mam.
Bhutani Bhutejya Yanti
Yanti deva vrata devan pitrinyanti pitrivrata bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhya jinopi mam.
Yanti Deva
Bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti madhyajinopi mam.
Translation. Lavanya.
Those who worship the demigods
Those
who worship the demigods
take birth among the demigods.
take birth among the demigods.
Those who worship the ancestors
Those who worship
the ancestors
go to the ancestors.
go to
go to
the
the ancestors.
Those who worship the ghosts and spirits
Those who worship
Worship the gods and spirits
will take birth among such beings.
will take birth among
such beings.
And those who worship me
And
and
those who worship me
Next, will live with me. No?
will live with me.
with me.
Internet issue. Maybe. Okay. Will live with me. Okay. Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Bhagavad Gita 9.26 sloka. Patram pushpam phalam toyam.
Patram
patram pushpam phalam toyam
Yo me bhaktya prayachati. Okay. Tad aham bhaktya upahartam. Asnami prayatatmana. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati.
patram pushpam phalam
Tad aham bhaktya upahartam asnami prayatatmana.
तदहं
भक्ति
भक्त्युपाहृतम् अस्नामि प्रयतात्मनः
पत्रं पुष्पं फलं तोयं यो मे भक्त्या प्रयच्छति तद् अहं भक्त्या उपहर्तम् अस्नामि प्रयतात्मना
पत्रं
पुत्रं
पुष्पं
पुष्पं
फलं
फलं
तोयं
तोयं यो मे
यो मे
भक्त्या
भक्त्या
प्रयच्छति
प्रयच्छति
तदहं
तदहं
भक्ति
भक्त्युपाहृतम्
उपाहृतम् अस्नामि प्रयतात्मनः
Prabhu ji, the last sentence, asnami prayatatmana or prayatatmanaha?
Prayatatmanaha.
Prayatatmanaha. Okay.
లాస్ట్ కి హెచ్ ఉంటే అట్లా
Okay.
కొన్నిసార్లు ప్రేతాత్మన కూడా అంటారు ప్రేతాత్మన ఓకే ప్రేతాత్మన నార్మల్ ఓకే
Prayatatmanaha. Okay.
అంటే ఆ ఫ్లో లో అట్లా కూడా వస్తుంది మాతాజీ చదివితే.
Okay, Mataji.
ట్రాన్స్లేషన్
Translation. If one offers me with love and devotion,
ఇఫ్
If
వన్
one
ఆఫర్స్
offers me with love and devotion,
a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water,
a
a
leaf,
leaf,
A
a
flower,
flower,
a
a
fruit,
fruit,
or
or water,
water,
I will accept it.
I
I
will
will
accept.
accept it. Bhagavad Gita 9.27 sloka. Yat karosi yad asnasi.
యత్
yat
కరోసి
karosi
తస్నాసి
Yat juhosi dadasi yat.
yat
juhosi
juhosi
dadasi
yat
Yat tapasyasi kaunteya.
యత్ తపస్యాసి కౌంతేయ
Tat kurusvamad arpanam.
tatkurusvamadharpanam
Yat karosi yad asnasi. Yat juhosi dadasi yat.
యత్ కరోసి యదస్నాసి యజ్జుహోసి యదాసి
Yat tapasyasi kaunteya. Tat kurusvamadarpanam.
యత్
yat
తపస్యాసి
tapasya
తత్పురుష్వామదర్పణం
Yat karosi yad asnasi. Yat juhosi dadasi yat. Yat tapasyasi kaunteya. Tat kurusvamadarpanam.
యత్ కరోసి యదస్నాసి యజ్జుహోసి యదాసి యత్ తపస్యాసి కౌంతేయ తత్పురుష్వామదర్పణం
Translation. Whatever you do,
whatever
Whatever
you
you
do,
do,
whatever you eat,
whatever you eat,
whatever you offer
whatever you offer
or give away,
or
or give away,
and whatever austerities you perform,
and
and
whatever austerities you perform,
do that,
do that
that
O son of Kunti,
O
O
son
O
of
son
son
of
of
Kunti,
Kunti,
as an offering to me.
as
an
an offering to me. Bhagavad Gita 9.29 sloka. Samoham sarva bhuteshu.
Samoham sarvabhuteshu
सर्वभूतेषु
Name dveshosti na priya.
न मे
me
द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिया
dveshya
E bhajanti tu mam bhaktya.
ते भजन्ति मां
bhajanti mam bhaktya
Maite tesu chapyaham.
mayeteshu chapyaham
Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Name dveshosti na priya.
Samoham sarvabhuteshu
न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिया
ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्.
ये
ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि चाप्यहम्
समूहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिया. ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्.
Samoham sarvabhuteshu न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिया ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि तेषु चाप्यहम्
I envy no one,
I envy
no one,
nor am partial to anyone.
nor am
partial to anyone.
I am equal to all.
I am equal to all.
But whoever renders
But
But
whoever
whoever
renders
renders
service unto me in devotion
service
service
unto
unto
me
me
in
in
devotion
is a friend.
is
is
a
a friend.
Is in me,
Is
is
in
in me,
me,
and am also a friend to him.
and I am
and I'm
also
also a friend to him.
Bhagavad Gita 10.8 sloka. Aham sarvasya prabhavo
aham sarvasya prabhavo
matah sarvam pravartate
matah
mattah
sarvam
sarvam
pravartate
pravartate
iti matya bhajante mam
iti matva bhajante mam
buddha bhava samanvita
buddha bhava samanvita
aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate
aham sarvasya
sarvasya
prabhavo
prabhavo
mattah sarvam pravartate
iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita
iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita
aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matya bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita
aham
aham
sarvasya
sarvasya
prabhavo
prabhavo
matah
mattah
sarvam
sarvam
pravartate
pravartate
iti
iti matva
matva
bhajante
bhajante
buddha bhava samanvita.
Translation. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds.
I
I
am the
am the
source
source
of
of all
spiritual and material worlds.
Everything emanates from me.
everything
Everything
emanates from
emanates
you.
from me.
The wise who perfectly know this
The
The
wise
wise
The
who
ones who
perfectly know
perfectly know
this
this
engage in my devotional service
engage in
engage
my
in my
engage in
devotional
devotional
service
service
and worship me with all their hearts.
and
worship
and
worship
with
me
all
with
their
all their
all their
hearts.
hearts.
Bhagavad Gita 10.10 sloka. Tesam satata yuktanam
Yesham
Tesham
Satyam
satatayuktanam
bhajatam priti purvakam
Bhajatam Priti Purvakam
dadami buddhi yogam
yogam
tam
dadami
Buddhi
yogam
Yogantam
tam
yena mam upayanti te
Yenam Upayanti
tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam
Tesham satatayuktanam
Purvakam
dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te
dadami
Buddhi
buddhi yogam
Yenam
yenamapayanti
tesam satata yuktanam bhajate tam priti purvakam dadam buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te.
మాధవి మళ్ళీ చేయండి
Yes,
మీకే
Guruji.
ప్రాక్టీస్ మంచిగా ఎస్
तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन माम् उपयान्ति ते
तेषां सततयुक्तानां यतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं
तं
येन
येन
माम्
माम्
उपयान्ति
उपयान्ति ते.
Translation. To those who are constantly
To those who are
those who are
constantly
constantly
devoted to serving me
devoted to
serving me
with love,
with love,
I give the understanding
I
I
give
give
the
the
understanding
by which they can come to me.
by which they can come to me.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
థ్యాంక్ యూ శ్రావ్య మాతాజీ
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving this offer.
ఇట్లా చేస్తేనే ప్రాక్టీస్ అవుతుంది మాతాజీ థ్యాంక్ యూ
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
థ్యాంక్ యూ ఆల్ ద డివోటీస్ వండర్ఫుల్ వాంఛాకల్పతరుభ్యశ్చ కృపా సింధుభ్యవ చ పతితానాం పావనేభ్యో వైష్ణవేభ్యో నమో నమః अनंतकोटि वैष्णव की जय
Jai.
श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय श्रीमद्
जय.
भागवतम की जय
Jai.
श्री चैतन्य चरितामृतम की जय
Jai.
निताय गौर हरि प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि
Hare
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Happy Thursday. Wish you all very happy Thursday.